Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today on the channel we are heading to Home Depot because the nuclear bombs are coming in 48 hours. That's all we have to prepare. Let's go get as much gear as we can right now. All right guys, so here we are at the Home Depot, also known as the place you go to fortify your home against the zombies. Let's go see what we can find. So normally, if you were to come in here, you would want one of those flat deck carts because the stuff we're gonna be buying today is big. But we only have one of these small carts because it's too damn cold outside and I'm too lazy to go and grab one of those. So obviously, just like we found at Walmart, we wanna stock up on as much seeds as we can because we know this may be the last time we see them. Root vegetable mix, that's always good. Definitely we want sunflowers. Sunflowers are very high in fats. This may be the last time, so stock up on as much of this as you can. This could be useful for cooking over an open fire. You just basically get a couple logs that you sit on the side, you put your fire underneath and you can cook stuff up. A good pair of leather gloves like this. Working around a fire, you're going to want a pair of leather gloves if you have to grab a hot pot or something like that so you don't burn yourself. Much easier to light a fire with a barbecue lighter because you can get right down in there into your tinder bundle. There will be no more weather channel after the apocalypse, so you're going to want to get yourself a portable weather station or in the very least a thermometer. So this tells you the humidity, the barometric pressure, and the temperature outside and inside. These are my favorite contractor bags. They have a variety of different uses, especially when it comes to cement. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Okay, so this is a dump cart. Now, something like this is going to be absolutely essential for around the homestead. This is going to be better than a wheelbarrow. If you can pick one of these up, it's well worth the investment. We're actually going to be reviewing one soon called the Poly Mule, so stay tuned for that. Definitely as much jerry cans as you can carry. Now what I'm looking for is some kind of siphon hose and a fuel filter. If you can find those two things, if you have to salvage gasoline and borrow it after the apocalypse, that's going to come in very handy.
Diesel, man. Man, I'm feeling sick, dude.
The majority of people, when they come here to shop for the apocalypse, you know exactly where they're going. They're going right here. So an electric chainsaw is something that you might want to consider. Now, hand saws are going to come in handy because they don't make a lot of noise and they don't require fuel. But an electric chainsaw, you can power from the sun because we all know that gasoline and diesel are going to be in short supply. But just remember, you're going to have to maintain these chains and that's going to require sharpening. So you're going to need the tools to sharpen. So just keep that in mind. I'm looking at something that's at least a 60 volt and up because we want that power. If we're going to be investing in something like this, you want to get the most powerful that you possibly can. Don't mess around with the 40 volt stuff. 60 volt and above is what you want. This is an absolute must. You pretty much want one of everything here. Homestead tools, manual, man-powered tools are going to be absolutely essential. Don't rely on electronic and gas-powered stuff. You want the man-portable stuff as a fail-safe. So you can get yourself a good old Polanski. This is what firefighters use. Great breaching tool. A good old sledgehammer. A garden tiller. This is a wedge. This is what lumberjacks use to split wood. A decent splitting axe. Definitely want a decent steel shovel. It's got to be steel. The great thing about these is even if you break the handle, you could craft your own handle relatively easy. Would definitely recommend having a few shovels on hand because they can break easily. And of course, if you got to put the kids to work, a D handle is going to be a little bit more ergonomic. So I would say get a D handle and a shaft. A multi-purpose 2-gallon sprayer. This can come in handy for disinfecting a space, as we've seen throughout the COVID pandemic. Can also, of course, be used for spraying pesticides. I know a lot of people think they're never going to have to use them, but trust me, when your crop is being destroyed, you will have to use pesticides. Pests are going to be a very big problem. They're going to eat your food, they're going to eat your crops, they might even eat you. For that reason, all of these things here are things you might want to consider, okay? Mouse traps are going to be absolutely essential, but you're probably just going to want to get yourself a cat or a few farm cats. Take care of all that stuff. Okay, now what I'm looking for here is an old school metal trash can, because with that we can make what's called a Faraday cage to protect our electronic devices from an electromagnetic pulse that would be caused by a high altitude nuclear detonation. So this is exactly what we're looking for. Perfect. Multi-purpose, but also a great Faraday cage. So you want to make sure you have a tight seal all around, and as you can see with this thing, it really is a nice, decent, tight seal. Now you might want to reinforce that seal a little bit with some metal tape, but what we want to do inside here is we're going to line this with cardboard or some kind of non-conductive liner, and that is going to act as our Faraday cage. We throw in our tablets that are full of PDF documents and various types of educational survival content, as our communications systems. We put it all in here, we put the lid on, and we forget about it. It's an excellent low-cost Faraday cage, 30 bucks, galvanized steel can. Excellent, I'm definitely getting that. These buckets are perfectly acceptable for storing food. If you use Mylar bags in conjunction with these buckets, they're inexpensive. 5 bucks for the bucket, 4 bucks for the lid. Would strongly recommend stocking up on these buckets if you haven't already. These are going to come in handy when we get to the cement section. We're going to want to make fortified barriers to prevent vehicles from coming inside a space, and to do that we're going to need what are called dragon's teeth. Now you can make dragon's teeth by filling something like this up with cement. You line the interior either with a contractor bag, and you line that bag with a WD-40 or something like that. You put in your cement mixture and you let it harden, you flip it over, and you have this heavy concrete barrier that you can put around your property, and it's going to impede traffic from going into a space. Ideally, you want these to be pyramidal in shape because they're the hardest to move. But if you can get something like this, or any sort of mold that you can use to make these sort of cement fortifications, that's something you should consider. And I would always go with the Brute brand. This is probably one of the most durable brands. You pay for it, but it's well worth it because it's going to last a lifetime. Something like this could be a great mold, a good cement mold as a barrier to prevent cars from going into a place. So they're only 20 bucks. You know what? Out of all these plastic containers here, nothing will ever beat a good old-fashioned milk cart. They're the most durable things. They're meant to carry a lot of weight. You can stack them. I mean, they're modular, like they're a little small to carry certain things, but in terms of organizing your space, it's far superior to these thinner, cheaper plastics which always crack and break. Thinking about the end of civilization. Things I'm going to miss after the apocalypse. I can think of one thing I'm really gonna miss. Toilet paper and toilets. Make sure you have a way to deal with those number twos. So here we have different types of Quikrete and cement. This stuff is going to be worth its weight in gold, I do believe, because you can pretty much make any type of fortification you want. The only problem with this type of cement is you got to make sure that you keep it nice and dry if you're going to actually store it. If you don't have access to cement, you can make a material called cob. This is a blend of subsoils like clay, water, and some kind of fibrous material like grass or straw. Another thing you're going to want to consider is sandbags. Now, they don't sell them at this Home Depot, which is kind of crazy. Nowadays, for flood protection, they sell these things called quick dam. So they use water to protect against water. We want sandbags because they provide ballistics protection. They'll stop pretty much any caliber of bullet, and you can make makeshift fortifications. So sandbags is an absolute must. You can fill them with any type of sand, but this is also a great reason to have your kids' sandbox nicely topped off. So any type of fencing materials, are gonna come in handy. One thing we're gonna want is barbed wire. If you can find barbed wire, that's what you're definitely gonna want. This type of galvanized utility fence material, it's just gonna slow down would-be trespassers, okay? It's not gonna provide an impenetrable fortress, but it's gonna slow people down. In addition to barbed wire, you can use your cement in conjunction with broken glass. Some places in the eastern parts of the world, they will put this on windowsills to prevent bears from getting inside the property. So a mixture of cement and broken glass can be an excellent burglary deterrent. Not humans, bears. My prepper brain is going off here. How could I use something like this? Is there a possibility for creating some sort of decoy structure to potentially lure somebody into, to take attention away from something else that I might be up to? These are things that you got to think about. You got to think outside the box. What kind of door do you have on your home? Is it one of these that I can kick in 2 minutes? You might want to get yourself a steel door. It's a commonly understood fact that 90% of break-ins occur through a door. This is what I want. 6-panel utility steel door. Listen to that. You have to knock because that's the only way you're getting in. So a deadbolt is only as good as the door frame, so you want to make sure you have at least 3-inch screws in both the strike plate and in the deadbolt itself going into the door. And of course you want a steel door. Now a lock picking set is going to be very useful. You can't get them from Home Depot, and in some cases you need a license to have a lock picking set. We've done videos on lock picking before. You can go and watch those, but something you might want to think about because that's the easiest way to silently get into a place where you're not supposed to be. Not that you should be doing that. Of course, we're talking about your own place when you forgot the keys. Now, everybody's thought about how can I make arrows after the crap hits the fan. These dowel rods, unfortunately, they're not strong enough. Maybe for a recurve bow, but anything beyond a recurve bow, you're gonna need either aluminum or fiberglass, okay? So I know it's a fun idea. You know, honestly, I have seen people make primitive arrows out of everything from cattails to sticks, but these are just too lightweight. So we're in the lumber section. The sky is the limit for the things that you can build here, really as much as your carpentry skills and imagination will permit. So we're not gonna spend a whole lot of time in this section, but yes, indeed, stock up on as much of this stuff as you can. When you can find it on sale, pick it up. 1,001 uses for plywood, hurricane proofing a home, zombie proofing a home. What guys do at log cabins to prevent bears from coming into their territory is they will hammer nails through plywood, and they will hammer that either onto the ground surrounding the cabin or to the cabin itself, and that will create a protective, very pokey barrier from protecting the bears. A barrier from bears. Bears, that's what we're talking. We're not talking about humans, right? We're talking about bears. Don't get it twisted, guys. Honestly, if you're really serious about wood and you have wood on your property, it's probably a better investment to look into lumberjack tools, saws, different woodsmithing tools in order to make your own wood. Otherwise, you know, you're going to be spending an arm and a leg, literally. The only thing holding civilization together is nails. You want to get as many nails as you can carry, okay? Big nails, because you can use them not only to build things, but you can use them to keep people out of things you build. I've done a video on nails before. I would encourage you to go and check it out. It's the one thing that you absolutely need to put in your bug out bag. Just a handful of nails can make a massive difference in a survival situation. Get screws as well, because they're going to be a lot easier to reuse. Security cameras are great, but they're a double-edged sword, because if you're up against a sophisticated gang who knows how to hack, they may actually be able to hack into this and use it against you. So just make sure you know what you're doing when you're getting yourself a security camera. But generally speaking, for practical purposes, they're excellent. If you can get a closed circuit system that is not connected to the internet, that's going to be ideal. Smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors are going to be absolutely important. Fire protection is not going to be there. Emergency services are not going to be active. So you need to be incredibly careful when it comes to fire and carbon monoxide, especially in wintertime. Ideally, you would have a fire extinguisher for every floor of your house. Ideally, every other room in your house. These things are going to be absolutely essential, especially if somebody tries to burn you out or somebody tries to light your home on fire, which could be a situation. We'll be dealing with a lot of arson when the crap hits the fan. But not only that, just your neighbors, they could make mistakes. If you live in an apartment building, somebody else could potentially start a fire. So if anything, this can buy you a bit of time. So these types of grow lights with adjustable spectrums are going to come in handy for growing different types of plants indoors. You need a certain type of spectrum in order to grow different things. So you're going to want to research exactly what you're trying to grow indoors. There may come a point where you have to grow stuff indoors. So we're going to be working with a channel called Gardening in Canada, and she's going to talk all about what spectrums you need for different types of plants. So this is a great section because we have solar paneled motion activated security lights. These are excellent because they're very easy to install. They don't require any sort of electrical work and they'll run pretty much indefinitely. Assuming we still have electricity, you're going to want to protect your lights. Some people use these lights with a protective exterior, like a cage, to prevent it from being broken. This is not the one I was thinking about, but this is definitely along the lines of what I was thinking. Anything like this that has a solar panel on top, you might want to consider, of course, because they require no power inputs. They're going to come at varying different brightness levels, so just be mindful of that. But anything with a solar panel is worth having. There may come a point, however, where you don't want to draw attention to yourself, so that's something to keep in mind. Another thing they didn't have at our Home Depot was solar panels, but this is going to be one of the first things I go for if I go to a department store and I know there's solar panels there. Solar panels are going to be absolutely essential. Dehumidifiers, if you have an indefinite power supply like solar, you can actually use them to extract water from the air. Now that is going to be demineralized water, so you're going to have to remineralize it somehow, or you'll have to make sure that you have the minerals to compensate for the fact that it's demineralized water. But as you can see here, 50 pints a day. So if this thing is running full bore, it's getting you 50 liters a day of water. Some kind of security mirror where you can see what's going on from another corner might come in handy if you have a big home, depending on where you reside, but don't underestimate security mirrors. Some sort of portable handcart or dolly system to move stuff around. We're talking about building fortifications and all this. So having something with a very high weight capacity, 1,000-pound capacity, absolutely important. If you live on an acreage and you have hard water from the ground, you might have to get yourself a lot of this salt. So you might want to stock up. This stuff can come in really handy for makeshift insulation jobs. I would encourage people to always have a little bit of this around. Great for camping, for winterizing, vehicle, fiberglass insulation. You know, you can't beat just having a few of these kicking around. You know, again, we're in a very cold climate up here, and you might need something like this to fortify. That's what the purpose of this is for. We're not talking about building a makeshift lean-to in the woods. We're talking about how are we going to have a sustainable life off-grid, and for that you need technology. This type of plastic sheeting, you can utilize this in conjunction with some duct tape. You can create a negative pressure room, and you can create a quarantine space inside a home to prevent cross-contamination. So clear plastic sheeting is going to be very useful if there's another pandemic. So this polycarbonate sheet, this is something which might be useful if you're going to be making a greenhouse, a passive solar greenhouse even. You can reinforce a lot with this diamond plating material. This is pure copper. They actually make copper coins and they sell for about $2 an ounce, 30 bucks just for this. So there may come a time when this is actual currency once again. You can make your own coins out of that. Preppers, we talk about paracord. Absolutely, have as much paracord, survivor cord, Titan survivor cord as possible, but you also need different types of heavy duty rope, okay? Now we sell rope at CanadianPreparedness.com that is much heavier gauge than this and much heavier duty. We're talking into the 10,000 pound range, but something like this is absolutely indispensable. Chains are absolutely essential as well. There's a lot of ropes, synthetic type ropes, that are even more powerful than chains nowadays, and they don't get really cold in the winter time. This is why I don't have a steel cable on my winch anymore. I went to a synthetic Kevlar winch because as good as chains are, they're good for security purposes, but aside that, you know. You can use a steel bar like this to easily reinforce a door. Okay, so on the sides of the door, on the panel, you can have a hinge, a receiver system, and this is going to act as an extra barricade on the door. Nothing's getting through here. So basically how it's going to work is this is going to be on the inside of your door frame. You're going to have another one of these like this. So a door that is out swinging, it's going to run into this. Okay, so it's just going to provide that extra protection. So you can actually buy products like this. It's called the Doricade, but you can make your own relatively easy. If we're talking about a free-for-all situation, you want to get as many power tools as you can. Just tools, 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 because these are things that you may never be able to get again. So absolutely, if you need all these wood cutting, angle grinders, sanders, all these things, these are things you're going to want to get now. Trying to keep somebody out of a space, this type of tape with this type of messaging, you can use that to your advantage to shape the environment, okay? We're going to get some of this. If there is an emergency, you got to help people out, get some high-vis reflective gear. It'll just help you to be easily identified. You can also use this for gray man purposes. Let's say you need to look like a worker to get into a certain place or to get through some sort of checkpoint, something like this, a good disguise, a hard hat as well. If you're in a war zone, hard hats, safety protective gear. If you're doing search and rescue stuff, you're going to need all that. Now, of course, if there's a pandemic, an N95 mask, preferably an N99 mask, will filter out viruses to 99% certainty. Protective eyewear, you want to close off any sort of orifice in your face. This is the Stanley Fat Max FUBAR, okay? If you don't know what FUBAR means, it basically means effed up beyond all recognition. It was an old military term. So this is a great breaching tool. If you had one tool that you needed to get into any building, this is it. So it's got a nail puller, a demolition hammer with a ripping hook, a board bender, and it's gigantic. So yes, at the very least, have yourself a decent pry bar. Again, tools, tools, tools. If I could, I would just have one of everything in this store, because again, these are all going to be things that you're potentially not going to have access to. So every man should have, and every woman, sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, every woman should have a good tool set in their home, okay? Headlamps and a spotlight and a floodlight. You want a spotlight for long distances and a floodlight to illuminate large areas. This is great for door security. Again, it's all about buying time. So how this thing works, it's a bar. This is a folding door security bar, okay? This might just buy you a little bit more time. There's many different ways to fortify a door. You can fortify it from the center, from the ground, from the doorknob. This is probably one of the easiest solutions. I've had good success with these locks. It's next to impossible to get a bolt cutter in here. Again, it's about buying time. They may still be able to get bolt cutters in here, but it's going to take them so long. It will probably take them at least 10 minutes, 15 minutes to work on a lock like this. So something like this, you can conjoin two pieces of steel and it almost turns it into a bit of a vault. You could maybe use that in conjunction with like a shipping container or welding materials, blow torches, rods for welding. These are all going to be things that you're going to want to consider. I'm not a welder, of course, so I'm not going to provide you any specific advice on what type of welder, MIG or TIG or whatever, but this is something you're going to want to look into, because if you can fuse steel together, you can do a lot of things. We've talked about signage in the past and how a sign is a very inexpensive method of subterfuge to confuse a would-be trespasser. Okay, so you can use signs in a lot of ways for home security. It's one of the easiest, most inexpensive ways of keeping people out of places you don't want them to be. I'm spitballing here, but I'm wondering if there's any way to make an air purification system, an NBC air purification system, utilizing some kind of shop vac like that, where you could suck in the air, filter it out, bring it into a space. There's something for you to think about. This section here with the generators, I'm looking here, we got maybe 20 generators max. This stuff is going to be cleared out within the first 5 minutes of an SHTF situation. Ideally, you'll want a dual fuel generator. You can get runs that run off not only on gasoline, but also propane as well. You might want to look into that because it just gives you more options, and propane will store a lot longer. So if you're worried about your gas generator and only having fuel that's going to last 6 months because the fuel goes bad unless you have fuel stabilizer, that's another thing you should stock up on here. Then consider getting a dual fuel generator, okay? Kerosene, it's expensive, but it's a very good dense fuel, which is not volatile. Steel wool, excellent way to start a fire, even if you only have a 9-volt battery, just for sealing gaps and keeping moisture out. Caulking agents are excellent. Tarps, big heavy duty tarp, 16 by 20 feet. You can conceal things, you can keep things sheltered from the elements, you can build shelters, serves a lot of functions. These are like makeshift hazmat suits. They're not going to give you chemical protection. They'll provide a little bit of particulate filtration or protection. So definitely this kind of stuff is going to go quick if there's another pandemic. So zip ties, let's say you catch some vandals and you want to keep them alive so you can eat them later, then definitely zip ties are going to come in handy. Definitely want to get duct tape. It's actually called duct tape, but there's a brand called duct tape. Metal tapes like this, which are conductive, are going to be great for our Faraday cage. Even though there's that adhesive, which is not going to be conductive, this is still better than nothing. So you could use this in conjunction with your trash can. That's going to be perfect. If we're talking about concealment, camouflage, subterfuge, paints can be worth their weight in gold, okay? Especially if you need to signal or if you want to make a big sign. Paint, spray paints, all of these things are going to be very useful. They don't sell it at Home Depot, but shutters, okay? Metal shutters, preferably manual shutters, because you don't want something that is dependent on electricity and that's going to fail. You're not going to be able to open and close it. But metal shutters, especially for window areas, large windows, there's not much you can't do with PVC pipe. You can make all kinds of framing. If you're building a greenhouse, you can use it for piping. You can use it for building survival caches. It's basically going to amount to what exactly you want to do with it, but this is definitely going to be a very important aisle for a lot of projects. So this type of PVC tubing, preferably the 4-inch, is great for PVC caches, especially if you need to store things like precious metals. You can cut this into partitions, you can get the end caps, and you can put a plastic liner in it, a bag, insert that, bury it somewhere, geocache. So these are going to come in very handy. You want a mobile electric drill pump. This is probably very low voltage. You can use this in conjunction with a hand drill. Okay, so I would encourage you to get one of these that you can use with your drill, but also you can get one of these. This is just a utility pump. It's not a lot of power that it takes. You can use this in conjunction with your lithium power bank, and this is going to allow you to move water from one place to another that can mean the difference between a little work and a lot of work when your water supply is in a pond, you know, a few hundred meters away. So, or if you have to pump water into a basin in a truck or something like that, having a pump is probably one of the most important preps. So right here, these types of filters could be very important if you're trying to create some sort of air filtration system. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do this yet. Ideally, you would get yourself a nice Swiss NBC filtration system. There's not many of those out there. You can buy them, but they're in very short supply. You can, however, make your own filtration system. Possibly something that relates to the shop vac idea I had earlier. I'm gonna think about it. Anyways, getting filters like this, furnace filters with the high filtration levels, the Filtrete, the filter down to, I think it's like the 1900. So this is one of the highest filtration levels. So you get your dust, you get bacteria and viruses. With the 1900 level, you get almost a 7 out of 10 in terms of virus filtration. Negative pressure room, easy to make, Google it. So electrical wiring. I mean, as many different gauges and different types of wire that you can get, because you may never see it again. And if you got to wire in a solar system, or you got to jerry rig some Mad Max contraption, wire is going to be your friend. So stock up on as many different types of gauges of wire as possible. Propane heaters, strongly recommend. I would encourage you to get a heat hog instead from CanadianPreparedness.com. You can get ones that mount right onto the 20-pound propane canisters. Also very useful. If you're thinking about electric heat, get that idea out of your mind. Unless you have a massive solar array with a lot of energy to spare, this is going to suck you dry, so don't even bother with it. They don't have too many options in terms of wood stoves, but you know, something like this, cast iron wood stove, I mean, that's something that's going to keep you alive in the winter time. This is for 1,200 square feet. This one's 2,000 square feet and pretty easy to install on the whole. Looks like they have all of the chimney stuff that you need there as well. So, you know, something like this, absolutely essential. And dual purpose, because you can use it for cooking, you can use it as an oven, you can use it for heating your home, obviously. This is a old school cast iron stove, and it's just sitting here by itself. Look at that. You don't see those too often anymore. So it's not the season yet, so we can't go outside into the garden center. If we could, we'd be stocking up on all kinds of growing supplies like fertilizers, gardening tools, things of that nature. Maybe when spring comes, we'll have to redo this video again. Stay tuned for that. If I have to self-checkout, I'm gonna be pissed. All right, guys, so we got everything and we didn't even get kicked out of the store. Oh yeah. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what store you want me to loot next. Because the way things are going, Vladimir Putin's about to do some crazy shit and Joe Biden's about to do probably nothing.
Come on, give me a break, man.
Just prepare. I think the end is nigh. Thanks for watching, guys. Gotta go.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.